with Synergy Behavior Solutions, and I'm just trying to get set up here so you can see me and this dog. Can you get on your bed, please? Good girl. Let's see. Maybe I'll actually put this on the ground. Here we go. Yeah. Okay. Gotta get some kibble. All right. So, today, I want to talk about not walking your dog. So, story time. So this dog was a very impulsive adoption back in 2015. And, let's say I was, good job. Was going through some stuff, life stuff, and sometimes my solution, and this has been true even when I was a child, my solution for life is hard is I get a puppy. Puppies make life harder generally, by the way, in case you didn't know. But it's a thing. So when I adopted her, I had spent probably like 6 years already. Whoop. Nice. Oh, so interesting thing. So Summer, just an aside, Summer is on my bed right now, and there is an X-pen separating my room, because Yoshi, if she has access to Summer, she is always muzzled. 99% of the time they're fine, but she doesn't react very well to certain triggers, and sometimes will redirect aggressively onto him, so we just don't let that even be a possibility. And so we're always working on calmness, etc., but for whatever reason, Summer just stood up because they got excited by the kibble, and normally Yoshi wouldn't care, but something about this setup, probably also because she went for a walk earlier and had just settled down for a nap. She hasn't quite recovered from her walk, which was a great walk. She got worried. So I don't know if you noticed, but if you just want to go back and see, you will see that she did a little bit of a hard stare towards Summer twice just then. So hi Kathleen, hi McKenna. And so I'm gonna pitch a piece of kibble. Normally it would be fine for Summer to lay right on the other side of this gate and I could just feed him gently and she would be happy watching him eat, because I've worked a lot on conditioning good feelings around Summer having things that she also wants. But for some reason she got a little worried by that. Summer also picked up on it, so he decided not to get off the bed and he is now chilling on the bed. So I am an excellent kibble chucker, so I'm gonna chuck the kibble all the way onto my bed and not on the floor, because if he were to jump down onto the floor to get the kibble, that would probably be too exciting for Yoshi. So just a little moment of oh, that was a weird thing that I want to make sure I manage well. So anyway, that's an example of why I'm going to tell this story about this dog. So Yoshi was about probably 6 months or so when I adopted her, and she was from this rescue, and I say that very liberal use of that term, which is funny because Summer also, when I got him as a puppy, turns out he was also a scam rescue, and the woman who I adopted him from that I thought was a puppy rescue, 6 years later I found out that she was wanted in 8 different states for stealing and selling dogs. So that's a different story, but Summer's amazing. I'm super glad I got him. But who's now drooling. He has an 8-inch piece of drool landing on my bed. Awesome. So Yoshi was, there's this PetSmart here in Portland, and every Saturday or something, they would have this rescue that came, and it was a small dog rescue. So it was literally this van that they would just open it, and it would just reek of urine, and all these chihuahuas would get out. And super cute little dogs, but I am not really a little dog person, or at least I wasn't in the past. These days I'm starting to reconsider that. Maybe someday I'll have a little dog. But we would, my family at the time and the people that I was living with, we would go and we'd look at all the cute puppies and the tiny dogs, but they were always super stressed, shaking chihuahuas in the PetSmart, having stress diarrhea and all this, very unpleasant. But one time we went there, one of the volunteers was holding this little gray puppy, and she had a little bow on her neck, and it was near Valentine's Day in 2015, and I was I'm obsessed with that dog. She was so pretty, and so they said she was a Canet Corso, definitely not. She was very clearly a pit bull. But I guess what had happened was this rescue had somehow caught wind of a shelter, a euthanized shelter that's like a pound basically in southern Oregon that had taken in this dog that they were going to euthanize when she was very, very young. She was only like 6 weeks or something. My guess is that I think she was the result of some kind of backyard breeding situation. She's an American Staffy, 75% American Staffy, supposedly 25% Neapolitan Mastiff. Not sure that I fully believe that, but she's definitely a Staffy. So because of her weird brain, I have sort of made up my own story that potentially she was supposed to be used for fighting or something. Who knows? But for whatever reason, the breeder or whoever had her as a puppy didn't want her because she had deformed legs, and they wanted her to be euthanized. So this shelter, this rescue, pulled her. And normally they didn't take large breed dogs or larger dogs, but they made up a story that she was a fancy cane corso, and she clearly wasn't. But I thought about it for like a week, went back, she still wasn't adopted, ended up like going home with her. So I had already spent 6 years working through Summer's leash reactivity, which started at about a year of age for him. And I had learned a lot. I had learned that most of what I knew about dogs was wrong. And fortunately, I had found my way on a positive training path and had learned quite a bit ever since hiring a trainer I am embarrassed I hired when Summer was a puppy. So I took out this puppy, right? I was like, oh, this is going to be like a clean slate. I'm going to start all over. We're going to go to clicker training class. We're going to have so much fun. This puppy's going to be awesome. And we had 3 dogs in the house at that time. My partner at the time also had a pit bull, a rescue, great dog. And I remember taking her out on a leash. We didn't have a fenced yard with 3 dogs. I know, it was crazy. But we would take them out on a leash to the front yard to potty. That was just what we did. And I remember I took her out, and she, cute little floppy, she had messed up legs. She was really deformed. She was a weirdo. She's fine now. But she flopped out, and then she looked in like 3 blocks away, like tiny speck on the horizon was a husky dog, and she just lost her mind, screaming and spinning and barking, and I was like, oh no. And so I definitely was like, okay, so I have this puppy is also reactive. So thanks to my Reactive Rover class from Synergy a decade ago, I was like, I know what to do. So we went to puppy class, place in like south of Portland. Terrible experience. Great. It was a great like clicker training class. Sit down, stay, basic stuff, all positive reinforcement. Yoshi was a nightmare in that class. She was lunging and barking at every single puppy. If I didn't let her go and eat the other dog, she would turn and like bark at me really angrily. It was a whole thing. So this dog was a mess from the first day I took her home. And Summer, easiest puppy I've ever had in my life. He's so easy. He was like potty trained at 3 months, incredible dog. Yoshi, me and my partner at the time both worked full-time at a school. I had a 30-minute lunch. I'd have to run home every single day to clean her and her crate because of her daily explosive diarrhea. So all of that totally connected in terms of her stress, her very bizarre reactive behavior, and she was just a mess. So I learned pretty quickly that the clicker training class wasn't for us, that there was something else that we needed. So fortunately, I found what I needed to help transform my dog, and to get me to where I am now. So like, thank you, Yoshi. But I will say that even during that time that we took the Reactive Rover class, we did all the things, I was still like, I gotta walk my dog. That's what you do, is you walk your dog, right? Like, that's what you do with the dog. You put the leash on and you go out the door and you walk around and you march around the neighborhood and then you go home, right? Like, that's what you do with dogs. I no longer believe that. And Yoshi was the first dog that I was not, it was a horrible experience, but I thought that I had to walk my dog. So we'd do this thing where I would take the harness off the hook and I'd turn to her, and she would be sitting on the couch, and she would start to shake, and she'd put her head down, does not want to go for a walk, very clear no thank you signs, and I was like, gotta walk my dog. So I'd force the harness on her, and I'd drag her outside, and we both have a miserable time walking around the neighborhood with her screaming and lunging and barking at everything, and me trying to get her to eat hot dogs or something, and then we'd go home, and we'd both be sad. So super not effective. So as I learned more, I got to a place where I figured out what was really going on in terms of what Yoshi needed. And one of the things that she definitely needed was not going for walks. And at Synergy, we do tend to work with, I think, a pretty, like, niche demographic of clients and dogs. So a lot of the dogs that we see, and the animals in general, are maybe, like, would be considered more extreme behavior cases. So a lot of the time, they've already seen a lot of other trainers, and maybe they even talked to their vet about it. Maybe the dog has already been, like, recommended to be euthanized. Maybe they're thinking about rehoming. Usually, these are behaviors that are really dramatically negatively impacting their humans' lives and their dog. And it's usually they come to us and they're at a point where it's like, this is so far from what we imagined when we wanted a dog in our lives. And that's how Yoshi was for me. It's like, this is not what I pictured. And that's like a story for another day about, like, my emotional and relational experience with this dog. But I will say that when I finally got down to realizing that if I was going to live with this dog, we needed to vastly change what we were doing, it really meant stop doing the thing that isn't working. And for her, that meant ditching the walks. So I stopped walking her for probably over a year, really. 8 months for sure, not leaving the house. A year of, like, we would sometimes go for a walk. And I worked at home on all of the skills and all of the games to get her to a place where she can make good choices on her own. And so during that time, we discovered things like scent work. We did, like, some agility stuff. We practiced a bunch of new behaviors. She loves to learn. But really, it was all about, I need to rewire this dog's brain. And that means not exposing her to things that get her to continually rehearse the same neural patterns that result in these really intense emotional reactions. And going back to, like, the kinds of clients that we tend to see at Synergy, I would say almost every single dog that I work with, I see a dog that is completely overstimulated, overwhelmed, and stressed out most of the time. And the vast majority of the behaviors that we find challenging in our pets are the result of dogs that their hormone levels are sky high in terms of stress, so that they're so trigger stacked and they're full of overflowing stress that they are not able to learn. They're not able to make different choices, and they spend a lot of their day in a state of, like, fight or flight. And so one of the best things that you can do for your dog is to ditch the walks, and that doesn't mean forever. This is an extreme case. She's still one of the most difficult dogs I've worked with, but the vast majority of my clients, and even my Reactive Rover students, I'm like, stop walking your dog. And usually I get some pushback. That's really difficult for people because it's a particular expectation. People feel guilty. People feel like, well, that's why I have a dog. If I can't walk my dog, I don't want a dog, which I totally get. Walks are important. However, just as an aside, you can walk without your dog. Like, go for a walk. Do it. Listen to an audiobook, whatever. Go for a walk. You can hike without your dog. You can run without your dog. It's okay. And the interesting thing is that a lot of the time, I would say like 90% of the time, when people ditch the walks and instead stay home and work on their skills, their games, and the things that build relationship, that build confidence, that build skills like disengagement, that really get to the foundation of how do we teach the dog to make alternative choices in the face of their stressors. We do that outside of the situation, not in the situation. And if you're taking your dog for walks, you're putting him in the situation over and over and over again, even if it's just a neighborhood walk. And so, having like said all of that, I actually thought that I would never be able to walk this dog. I was like, that's actually not going to be something that she can do. And I think it was when I accepted that I was like, that we like took off. So we really like, it was a grind. It was a hard time for a couple of years. And then it was when I was like, I'm actually going to train for her. It's not going to be for what I want. It's going to be so that she can have a better life, so that she can be happier and she can be calmer and she can sleep better and she's not having panic attacks and having a hard life. And it was when I started going in that direction of what is helpful to her on a micro and a macro level that then we now take neighborhood walks. They're the calmest walks. They're calmer than summer walks. And to be fair, Summer is a bouncy, silly boy, but she's loose lead. Today, she's the highest prey drive of any dog I've ever seen. today we were walking. I glanced at my phone, which I don't often do when I'm walking her. I'm usually pretty in tune with her because she does need quite a bit of like interaction and management. This past year has been like we've conquered squirrels for the most part, and that's been an incredible thing. Like, I don't think there's anything that I'm more proud of, except for this one time that I got first place in a laser tag tournament. That was a big deal. But in terms of like, I looked, Yoshi stopped, loose lead, and then I looked up, and like less than 10 feet in front of us, hi, what do you need? Yeah, like, oh, don't mind me, thank you. Less than 10 feet in front of us, a squirrel was crossing the road, was running in front of her, and she didn't even hit the end of the leash. And I was like, oh my God. And she saw it, took a breath, and then turned back to me. And we continued on our walk. And I got really excited, super high pitched. I let her have a bunch of treats. We had a thing, and then we kept walking. And so you can get there. Anybody, if this dog can do it, your dog can do it. The thing is that you have to be willing to change your own behavior. And I would say the number one first step is to manage the situation. Stop exposing your dog to the scary things. Stop putting them in a position where they're not able to regulate their emotions. And the vast majority of the time, that's on their leash walks. Also, as an aside, I said this in the loose leash walking thing, but leash walks are not exercise for your dog anyway. So if your argument is like, my dog needs a lot of exercise, you don't walk fast enough for your dog to get exercise on a walk. The tiredness they have after a leashed walk is because of mental stimulation. That's what walks are for. They're for sniffing, for exploring, for training, for having a relationship and buddy-buddy. And if your dog isn't having a good time, then none of that is happening. So the very first thing you can do to help your reactive dog, your fearful dog, your stressful dog is stop putting them in those situations so that down the road, you will notice that you are in them and your dog is okay. But right now, that's the best thing you can do, is give them a stress vacation. 3 weeks. I challenge you 3 weeks. That's hardly any time. And see what happens if you ditch the food bowl, invest in your relationship, build some fun games, take my Reactive Rover class if you really do have a reactive dog. It's online. And instead of going for a 20-minute walk, play games with your dog. Train your dog. Hey. Work with your dog on things that you care about and that you want to invest in, and then see what happens. And I have seen transformative things happen just from ditching the walks, just from that change. That people are like 3 days in and they're like, oh my God, my dog is sleeping all day. My dog isn't alert barking to everything. My dog isn't constantly dropping a ball in my lap. These are dogs that are overstimulated. So stop doing the thing. I just want to do a shout out. What time is it? How long have I been yammering on here? Yammering on. I don't know what time it is. This is an iPad. I don't understand Mac products. I'm sorry. I don't get it. Kathleen Valentine is watching, and I just want to give a shout out to her in terms of ditching the walks, because we're in a dog training group, and I noticed that she posted, I think, yesterday or something. She has 2 like incredible rescues that she's done really, really great work with. And she found me through some Facebook group and ended up taking one of my classes in the summertime where I talked about ditching the walks and doing some training instead. And I think that 18 minutes, thank you, Kathleen, I need to stop. And she fully went all in, and she had this dog that was super reactive to other dogs, like barking and lunging at 100 feet away or whatever. And yesterday she took him for his first leash walk in almost a year, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, Kathleen. And he was like absolute rock star. There were like kids running around the cul-de-sac and dogs barking, and a dog even approached them, etc. And he was just relaxed and happy and doing all of the things. So you don't need to put your dog in a stressful situation. It's actually better to not do that. You're gonna get so much more positive effect. I think that people want to believe that like my dog has to get used to XYZ, but that's actually not how learning happens, really. And so, yeah, this is just me rambling on, essentially, but I just want to say, even with dogs that maybe don't have neuroatypical, let's say, I am also neuroatypical, so we have that in common, but even with these guys, it is absolutely possible to get to places that you wouldn't really think. Yoshi has dog friends now. She can greet other dogs. And that's amazing, given her history. So absolutely you can get there. You just need to be willing to maybe question some of your assumptions about what your dog should and shouldn't be doing and what your relationship needs to look like. I know people who don't walk their dogs at all. And there are some dogs who that's not for them. That's not what they want to do. That's not enjoyable, and it's not going to be where their relationship is enriched, and that's okay too. Great. So I just noticed a few. I just want to check the comments because there's a lot of people commenting, so I just want to make sure I answer any questions. Let's see. I love all the extra info you share. Thank you, Christina. Let's see. Hi, Yoshi. This is not yours until I feed it to you. I know. That was us. Yep, Kathleen. Best thing they did was ditch the walks. Come here. Come here. I know. Come here. Heidi says the pushback I get when I say this is so strong. Oh man, yeah. That's why those people aren't for me. So if I'm like, hey, I'm gonna challenge you to do something different, and they're like, that's preposterous. They're not the right match for me. I'm not for everybody. That's fine. I'm not gonna sit here and convince people, but the vast majority of the people that I tell to do that, they've given me money already. So at that point, they're like, I guess we'll try it. And I love when people dive in, even if they're like a little bit hesitant. It really does. It's a paradigm shift for sure. Game changer. JJ Heldman, how do you get them to burn off enough energy without walks, especially if you have a small or no yard? That's a good question. Thank you for saying that, JJ. So I know I said I was going to stop talking. Hi, can you lay down? I know, yeah. Thank you. You're okay. Yeah, it's very exciting. I'm getting all animated. So yeah, there you go. So that's a good question. So first of all, not everybody has a yard, 100%, and I should have talked about that. If you have to take your dog out on leash to potty, that's totally fine. There are ways, like, do it, but just come right back in and try and plan for, avoidance to not be exposed to your dog's triggers. There are some really great management tools if you live in a really high traffic area. So some of my clients live in the Pearl District in Portland in like a high rise, and they have really reactive dogs. So we have all of the problem solving skills in terms of how can we make this as least stressful as possible. So like thunder caps and thunder shirts and earmuffs and goggles and whatever you need to decrease your dog's stimulation to get them out to potty and come back in. That's what I would say for people who need to leash walk your dogs. If you have to take your dog out to potty, you have to do that. That's fine. Totally fine. And in fact, for people with yards, a lot of them, I'm also like, you need to take your dog out on leash because they're practicing all the behaviors you don't want in the yard also, especially here in Portland because we have so many, it's a really dog-friendly place. So lots of fence fighting happens with neighbor dogs and lots of squirrels here too. Lots of like outside cats too, which is a different conversation. But how do you get them to burn off enough energy? So I've talked about this before, and I'm just going to say, I have still never met a dog that is not getting enough exercise. That's really not the problem. People used to say like a tired dog is a good dog. And I usually say a tired dog is a wired dog. A calm dog is a good dog. So this dog can go hike up Mount Defiant, like 12 miles round trip, 6,000 feet of elevation gain, and still not sleep afterward. She can still go. And that's not what she needs. And so she will try to convince me that that's what she needs. But exercise is pretty stressful. And I mean that in terms of it gets all the hormones pumping that also are the hormones that pump when we're negatively stressed. So a lot of the dogs that I meet, actually, a lot of their high level of stress comes from too much exercise. And this usually because exercise is one of the best ways to try and exhaust your dog. So if you have a dog that has a lot of really challenging behaviors, throwing that chuck it 100 times in the park, you get a couple hours of peace. But that's not, an exhausted dog is not a calm dog. And so if we can teach our dogs calmness, it doesn't really matter how much energy they might have. This would be considered a high energy dog. These are not considered chill dog. They do like to sleep in, everybody knows that. But they can go for sure. They're at like 0 or 200%, but that's not really true. So here's my dog at 50%. So I do lots of mental stimulation. Fitness doesn't need to be super arousing. I do a lot of like doggy aerobics, parkour type things in the house. Doing 10 minutes of teaching your dog a new skill is exhausting to them. And my favorite thing is scent work. Doing scent games with your dog will wear them out. I can do 2 hides in the house with Yoshi and she's like good to go. And that's like 5 minutes of my time. So physical exercise, And also there are ways to go. You can go places where you're not going to be exposed to your dog's triggers too. If you're in the Portland area, Sniff Spot is super awesome here. We have a lot of really good Sniff Spot locations, so you can rent out a space that's just for you and your dog. So that's really cool. Being able to go places where you're not going to see a lot of your dog's triggers. So I recommend like shopping centers, like strip mall type areas, warehouse districts. You can go for short walks around there that are just sniffy walks. Rather than trying to like get certain, like distance or mileage in. Let's see. JJ said makes sense. My dog is very excitable when meeting other dogs, including on leash, but he wants to play, not fight. I still don't get whether this is reactive behavior and whether it is a nervous behavior. I have always thought he was super friendly and happy to meet up with other dogs. Can I have a consultation with you? Oh, I love that last question. Yes. So you can go to our website, synergybehavior.com. If you just link through the Facebook, you can also send us a message and I can send you the link. We do behavior health assessments online, all of that. However, you could also start with my Reactive Rover homeschool class. So that's every 4 weeks running. So I can post the link for that in the comments later today if you want to check it out. I would say yes, that would be qualified or like as reactive behavior. I don't really like labels anyway. Your dog is lunging and barking at other dogs. That's inappropriate and not a desired behavior, and also is indicating that there's some skills that your dog can develop. A lot of teenage dogs that got to meet a lot of dogs as puppies then become frustrated when they don't get to say hi to all the dogs, and then as they get older, that frustration often does kind of turn into more aggressive type behavior. So now is definitely the time to start working on a little bit of like, we don't get to say hi to every dog, and that's actually fine. But yeah, I can talk about that forever, because that whole thing about like my dog is friendly, but like actually is he? I love that conversation. But I can't do that right now because I'm already over time. Diana Brody said, I'm trying to figure out if my dog is aggressive or just excited to see other dogs. Would you still do no walks? If we make it to an off-leash park, he doesn't bark or growl. I'm not going to go into that right now, but I will say if your dog is barking and lunging at other dogs on leash, it doesn't really... Aggression is a very nebulous term. So I think what's more important is what is the behavior that's happening? Barking, lunging, pulling, obnoxious behaviors that we don't really like, behaviors that make the other dog uncomfortable. All of that is stuff that we want to work through and try to have calmer walks, regardless of where you're going. So I would say it doesn't actually really matter if your dog is like, I want to eat that dog or I want to meet that dog. Because Yoshi doesn't know most of the time what she wants. It doesn't actually matter. So what does matter is, can you turn away from that dog and continue on calmly? That's what matters to me. Oh yeah, and that's funny because both of you all are named Diane and Diana, and you had the exact same question. Love that. Great tips. What if the fear comes from one specific thing, like riding public transport? How do you train them to be more relaxed when they're relaxed everywhere else? I would argue that I have not yet met a dog that is super worried in only one context. So So there are ways to work on that, and I would probably try to avoid public transit for a while and work on the different components of it. I think this would be a longer conversation, but the short answer is like, yes, I would avoid the situations that stress the dog. And then start working on general confidence with certain elements that would be like a part of riding on public transit. That's a very specific and super interesting question. I would love to talk more about that at some point, McKenna. Kathleen is recommending my classes because she's awesome and a big fan. She had a good experience. Sharon Gallagher, I wish I'd heard this 10 years ago. It's so spot on. I adopted a super reactive lab who, through trial and error, was finally able to help him, but so many of the things we as inexperienced dog owners found through trial and error is contained in this video. We put him through a lot before we found out some of these things. So much good information. When you say ditch the food bowl, do you mean just use the kibble for training and rewards so you aren't overfeeding? Yeah, it's not so I'm not overfeeding, actually. It's so that all of this value, you see how interested my dog is in it, comes from me. And I have literally thousands of opportunities to capture and reward good behavior. Even the naughtiest dog, like this one, is doing the right thing and being good like 80% of the time. So it gives us an opportunity to invest in the behaviors that we like. And you can get really drastic behavior change very quickly by having your dog play and work for their food. And they prefer it anyway. I want to say... We love our... Oh, yeah, flirt pole is great. Just be careful depending on the dog. So, like, she can't do flirt pole because it turns her into a red mist completely loses her mind. We're slowly working on it. We're getting there, but it's been years, and we can do 1 or 2 reps with a flirt pole, and it's gone for weeks. But it depends on the dog. Some dogs are great with it. Anna Berg also recommends the Wild Pups class. Awesome. Yeah, hopefully we'll be offering that again when the weather is nicer. And then one thing that I want to throw out is the person who you were talking about, the reactive dog that you adopted, and you made like a lot of mistakes. That is so normal and okay. When I got Summer, I hired a dog trainer who came into my house and had me growling at my dogs and picking them up by their collar and stuff like that. I regret it, and also I do a lot better now. So it's okay when we know better, we do better, and we just continue to learn, and our dogs get to benefit from that. So just do the best that, flirt pole with rules. Yes, Heidi. So do the best that you can, and don't be afraid to try new things. It's not going to hurt to ditch the walks for a while and see what happens. Try engaging with your dog in different ways. Okay, thank you all. This was a long one, but it was fun, and thanks for being here. Have a good